Hello class, today we're going to do our first lecture on reasons and issues. We're going to look at how exactly we make arguments and how to better break down these arguments so that way we can look at all the parts and see how they work together. We're also going to learn how to distinguish between different kinds of claims and understand the burden that is faced when you make each kind of claim. Now, there are three aspects to an idea, and the first one is what we call the belief, right? So in the belief, we're talking about the psychological acceptance of an idea, that you believe X or Y. So for example, I believe in aliens. That might be an example. I don't know if I do or not, but I'm just saying, let's just say that was a belief, okay? So belief is the psychological acceptance of an idea. Now, there's more to an idea than just believing something as far as critical thinking goes. The second thing, or the second aspect, is the justification. The justification is the part where you explain why you believe what you believe. Oops, that was a mistake. Why did I put two F's? Okay. The justification is the reasoning in support of the belief. So I could believe in aliens, for example, and my justification might be something like, because there are billions and billions of galaxies, and if you play the lottery, there's got to be a few winners, right? So that's a justification. It's the reasoning in support of an idea. Sometimes people believe stuff, but they have no justification for it. So they just believe in aliens just because, or they believe in higher powers just because, there's no real reason, or they believe in witchcraft just because. So justification is what is the starting point for the conversation, because then we can start asking, well, why do you believe this? And what's your basis for believing this? You see? And that's where critical thinking is going to start coming into play. And the third part is the actual truth to the argument, okay? So the truth is the actual truth of the idea. Now, we can get into whole long 10-week discussions about what is truth and because there's different theories about what counts as truth and what doesn't count as truth. And, for this course, we're going to kind of skim over that. But the idea is this. You have a belief, you have reasons to believe it, and they could be true or they could still not be true. So I could believe in aliens. I could believe that because of the lottery idea that they exist, and I could be right. But I could still be wrong, too, if we were able to find out and see the whole universe that they don't exist. Or if aliens did land on this planet and made themselves well known to everybody, then I could be proven right here. But often what happens in science and all these different fields is you have belief and justification, but we have no way of verifying if it's true or not. So this is where you often get different theories, competing theories about certain things. So where did the universe come from? And is there a multiverse? So we might have beliefs and justifications for a multiverse. So there's a universe outside of the universe that interacts with other universes. But we don't really have a clear way to know whether that's true or not, or the origin of humankind. So we have the belief in evolution, the justification, the fossil records, but maybe for some people, we still don't know if it's true. And so that's where you get into the whole, evolution versus creationism, all that stuff here is with this idea of we have beliefs and justifications, but we're not always able to see right away for ourselves whether they're true. And it's possible to have differing beliefs with differing justifications that have an equal opportunity or an equal chance of being true as far as we know, because we don't have any more access to data. Okay? So belief, justification, truth. Always have these and keep these in mind as we get through critical thinking in the next couple weeks. Now, there are three kinds of claims that people can make, and it's important to recognize the distinction between each of these claims, because each kind of claim has a different burden and has a different objective, and if you're not sensitive to that, then that's where you run into problems. Okay, so the first kind of claim that exists is what we call a factual claim. Okay? A factual claim or a fact affirms that certain conditions exist in the world, okay? So these are facts about the way the world is. So they're marked by words like, is, to be, will, or was, okay? So is, will, was, to be, all of those are usually signs of a factual claim, but not always. So you have to still read the sentence, but these are hints. Now, there are obviously 3 different kinds of factual claims depending on what you're talking about. So you have factual claims like a present fact, and this is a fact about the present. So 24 species of animals run faster than humans. That's a present fact. So, it's something about the present. As far as we know, 24 species of animals run faster than humans currently today. We have past facts, and these are facts about the past. So, Casey Anthony killed Kaylee Anthony back when that was a big thing. So that's a question of a past fact. Did that happen? Anytime somebody is on trial for a crime, we're inferring about the past, right? What happened from this day to that day when this person was killed or this person was kidnapped or whatever. And then we have future facts. So these can be facts that are predicting something about the future. So for example, the national debt will triple by 2050. So in the year 2050, we'll be in even more debt nationally by 3 times. So for that kind of claim, then, we would be looking at our rate of debt acquisition, how much are we paying off, and economists and political scientists and whoever can then debate whether that's an accurate projection or not. Now, of course, when you're debating about the future, there's always an element of uncertainty, right? Because to debate about the future, you kind of have to hold it constant. And of course, there's always things that come up that we don't anticipate, for better or for worse. And so that's always a problem of talking about the future, is you have to assume constancy, and that's always hard to, and that's usually not what happens. Now, in a factual discussion, if you will, or in a factual debate, there is usually the goal is what we call preponderance of evidence. So when you're dealing with facts, what you're trying to do is you're trying to prove through a preponderance of evidence that you're right. So whenever somebody is making a factual claim, usually the first thing you want to figure out is what's the evidence for this claim other than just them saying it, right? So, if somebody's going to say something like vaccines are bad for you, then you'd probably want to say, like, what are the facts? Like, what basis are you making this claim, right? What studies or what science are you basing this off of, okay? And then you have to then look at, well, what's the evidence that says the opposite? And which evidence seems more persuasive based on what's been presented? So factual claims then, the goal of a factual claim overall, and what you have to do with a factual claim is what we call verification. So in verification, that's what a factual claim calls for. So when I say, it's cold outside today, then the goal is to verify that and to say, okay, we can verify that it's cold outside by going outside. It's a factual claim. And people can say, yeah, it's cold, it's 40 degrees. And other people can say, no, it's not that cold. Okay, cool. Verification. Next, you have value claims. Okay? So value claims, I'll put that up here, are claims that assert the quality of a person, place, thing, or idea. So value claims are often marked by best or worst, right or wrong, just and unjust, beautiful, ugly. They're sometimes confused with factual claims because they also sometimes use is and was like factual claims. So an example of a value claim might be the Star Wars is better than Star Trek, okay? So there still is in there, but it's not a factual claim because there's no way to verify that Star Wars is better than Star Trek. The idea is, with a value, is you're trying to argue for an assessment. So the goal of a value debate then, or a value discussion, is assessment. You're assessing different values, and what you're ultimately looking for, or what you're trying to get to in a value debate, is the paramount value. So which value is more important, okay? So think about it. Let's say somebody said that some business, okay, we'll call it the Metro Business Company, okay? They are a good company because they take care of their employees. So somebody's arguing that this business is a good business because all the employees are taken care of. They have really good benefits. They all have high salaries that are above market average, and their employees are all happy. But what if somebody said that actually they're a bad company because they have very low profit margin? So what you have then is you have one person arguing that the company is good because it takes care of their employees, so you can put employee welfare, right, on one end, and then on the other end, profit margin. So that would be a value debate, right? Because I believe this company is good because their employees are taken care of, and in my worldview or in my beliefs, the important part of a company is that it takes care of its people, right? But on the other end, somebody could say, but no, the important thing that a company needs to do is keep its doors open and make money. Because when it makes money, then, everybody flourishes that way. And it gives back to the economy and all of that. So what this would become then is a debate about values. What's more important, employee welfare or profit margin? Now, of course, you could always say both, but then it would be hard to say, well, does this company do that very well? Okay? So that's what a value debate is. It's a value of assessing what is good and what is bad, okay? And so factual claims call for verification, value claims call for assessment. And in a value debate, you're deciding what value is most important, or the paramount value. Lastly, you have policy claims. Now, you can call them policy, you can call them action claims, but a policy is a claim that tells someone or some agency how to act. So, the United States federal government should pass a spending bill. The University of Kansas should build a campus pub. We should go to Applebee's for dinner. All of these are policy or action claims, okay? Now, policy claims then the goal is to call for action. So with a policy claim, what we're looking for then, when we're trying to figure out is this a good claim or not, is comparative advantage. So what we're trying to decide with a policy claim like the United States federal government should build an oil pipeline across North America, what we're going to try to debate about, or what we're going to try to think about is this good for us? Is this good for the United States federal government? Is this good for the American people? So what are the advantages to building this pipeline, and what are the disadvantages to building the pipeline? And which advantages and which one outweighs? Is it more disadvantageous to build the pipeline? Okay, then we shouldn't probably build it then, because we're going to be worse off if we have the pipeline built. Or are we going to be better off overall? Well, that's, then we should probably build the pipeline. So a policy debate then can often entail facts and values, because you have to figure out, is it possible to build a pipeline? And that's kind of a factual debate, right? And do we have the money to build the pipeline? That's a factual debate. And then on top of that, you also have to mix in values. Well, we can build the pipeline, but we'd have to knock out a whole bunch of wildlife preserve. Is that a good thing? Well, that just depends on, do you think the economy is more important than the environment, or do you think the environment's more important than the economy? So a policy debate will often involve both fact and value claims. But the ultimate goal of a policy claim is the call for action, right? So, the United States federal government should do this. The hope is that people will do this. Okay, we should go to Applebee's. You're not just saying that just to be a fact. You want people to act on it. So, 3 different kinds of claims. Facts call for verification, value calls for assessment, and policy calls for action. Each have different objectives. So keep that in mind. Now, what we're going to do next is the book does an okay job of kind of breaking down ideas, but I feel like this tool that I'm going to show you is going to give you a much better understanding and a much more systematic way of doing critical thinking, in a way where you can break down an idea or an argument and really understand how all the parts work, okay? So you all might have heard of this before, and it's all over the place. It's called the Toolman Model of argumentation. Okay, I'll just put of argument. I'm using this stylus for my iPad, and sometimes it writes accurately, sometimes it doesn't. So if my handwriting looks like little kid handwriting, it's not in real life, but on iPad stylus it is. Okay, anyways. So to show this, let's just make a sample argument. Now, I'm of course a Chiefs fan. I'm from Kansas City originally, so I'm going to make an argument about the Chiefs. Just a sample argument. All right. So let's say I want to make a claim. I'm going to say, and let me see if hopefully I can fit this. The Chiefs will make the playoffs this year. Okay. So that's my claim. The Chiefs will make the playoffs this year. So that's simple. So we will call this box the claim. And a claim is basically the general statement or assertion. All right? So my claim is the Chiefs will make the playoffs this year. That's a claim. So that's what we would call it. It's the assertion, it's the takeaway belief, it's the thing I want to say, essentially. Now, just saying this isn't enough, right? For an argument standpoint, from a critical thinking standpoint, if somebody just went up to you and said, Chiefs make playoffs this year, and then that's it, I guess. I mean, you haven't really convinced me of anything because you just made a claim, right? So, what am I basing this claim on? Well, I might base the claim on this. I think the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs this year because the offense is finally clicking, okay? And at the time of this video, the Chiefs have won 4 games in a row. They just beat San Diego, and so the offense is on a roll. So I'm going to put the offense is clicking. So this piece is called the grounds. Okay? Grounds are a statement made about persons, conditions, events, or things that says support is available to provide a claim. In other words, grounds are the reasons that support your claim, but it's a very specific, because there's going to be different kinds of reasons that support a claim in a second. So the grounds are a statement about persons, conditions, events, things in the world that provide some kind of support, logical support to this claim. So far my argument is this. My claim is the Chiefs will make the playoffs on the grounds that their offense is clicking. Okay? So you have claim and you have grounds. Now, between these two things, all right, there's this thing where I'm making an assumption, right? The Chiefs will make the playoffs because the offense is clicking. So what does the offense clicking have to do with making the playoffs? You see, because the offense could be clicking, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll make the playoffs, right? So on these grounds, I have to make an assumption, right, to support the claim. When somebody just tells you the Chiefs will make the playoffs because the offense is clicking, you have to connect the offense clicking with the Chiefs making the playoffs. This connection is what we call, and I'll put it in green, the warrant. Okay? An example would be the Chiefs will make the playoffs because their offense is clicking. And that's good because a good offense means they'll win more games. Okay. So, the warrant is the connection between the grounds and the claim. In this case, the Chiefs will make the playoffs because the offense is clicking. The warrant is good offense means winning games. So a warrant is a general statement that justifies using the grounds as a basis for the claim. Now, in most cases, the warrant is often implied. So that's why the argument kind of sounds strange at first. That's because we often leave the warrant to be implied. But you can see how problems can occur if you pick shaky grounds to make a claim because the warrant doesn't follow. Because if we were to look at this argument right now, the Chiefs will make the playoffs because their offense is clicking, and we left it at that and we covered the warrant, you could counter that argument by saying, but just because you have a good offense doesn't mean that you'll win every football game because you still have to have a good defense, right? So you could already see a problem with the argument if you have it just like this, you see? So the reason you caught that, though, is because you thought, okay, the offense is clicking. Oh, the warrant's the problem here, you see? Because the offense clicking doesn't mean that they'll win the playoffs. But there's more. On what basis do you make the grounds? In this case, on what basis do I make the claim that the offense is clicking? So I'm making the claim the Chiefs will win the playoffs, and I'm making on the grounds that the offense is clicking. But the question is, how do I know that the offense is clicking? Well, I might say because they're scoring more touchdowns. They're scoring TDs. Okay? So I'm supporting the idea, my grounds, that the offense is clicking by saying they're scoring TDs. This is what we call backing. Backing is any support, so usually it's specific instances, statistics, testimony, or credibility that provide more specific data for the grounds or the warrant. So your backing is your evidence, okay? And it's usually hard evidence. Some kind of example, some kind of statistic, some kind of study, and it supports the grounds. Because one way you could attack the argument, the Chiefs will make the playoffs because their offense is clicking, is maybe instead of attacking the warrant, so instead of saying, well, good offense doesn't necessarily mean win games, you could attack this. And you could say, well, their offense isn't clicking though. I mean, they're still kicking a lot of field goals. So to prevent that, you provide evidence, right? In this case, but they're scoring more touchdowns, so they're getting more productivity on the ball, and the field goals, every team kicks field goals, something like that. Okay, so the backing provides support for the grounds. Backing can also be used for warrants too. So maybe I'll provide evidence that says, like, historically teams that have better offenses than defenses win Super Bowls, okay? So that could be a backing for the warrant, because you might come out and say, yeah, but just because you have a good offense doesn't mean defense. But then I could argue, but historically, teams that have better offenses than defenses score or, make it to the Super Bowl, whatever. Okay, so that's backing. Now, I may not be 100% sure that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. So I may want to say something like, it's very likely that the Chiefs will make the playoffs this year because the offense is clicking. Because people sometimes don't make arguments at 100%. Like they'll kind of qualify it, if you will, and say like it's very likely the Chiefs will make it, or it's not very likely the Chiefs will make it. So in this case, I might say, in terms of confidence, I might say that this is very likely, okay? So let's say I modified the argument to say, it's very likely that the Chiefs will make the playoffs today or this year because the offense is clicking. And we know this because they're scoring a lot of touchdowns, and usually teams with good offense win good games. So, very likely in this case would fall under what we call a qualifier. A qualifier is a statement that indicates the force of the argument. It's often noted by probably, it's very likely, presumably, maybe, usually, and it shows how the warrant is connected to the grounds. Okay, so because the offense is clicking, it's very likely that the Chiefs will make the playoffs this year. Okay, so that's a qualifier. And so qualifiers are our degree of certainty, or the degree of force of the argument. Now, there's an assumption, again, and I may be very complex about this, and I may recognize that, there's still possibilities, though, that they may not make the playoffs. And so I want to kind of preempt that possibility because, like I said, somebody might say, but you still need a good defense. So I might make my argument a little bit more complex. So I'll say this. I think the Chiefs will very likely make the playoffs this year because their offense is clicking. They're scoring lots of touchdowns and they're getting really good return on their possessions. Unless the defense doesn't hold, okay? So I'll put unless the defense stinks, okay? So this bit right here is called the reservation. Oops. The reservation is basically conditions in which the authority of the warrant should be set aside, okay? So technically, it could go under here as well, but either way, the reservation is basically marked by except, unless, and, it's something that essentially says, I am right unless something obtains, okay? So, the Chiefs will make the playoffs unless the defense doesn't hold, right? Something like that. So the reservation is what you recognize as being a possibility of your claim not holding up. And then there's a last part, and this seems counterintuitive, and so it's kind of a strange thing that it's in the Toolman model of argumentation, but it is part of it. And it's what we call the rebuttal. Okay, I'm trying to find a space here. Let me see if I can. All right, make it bigger. All right. The last piece is what we call the rebuttal, okay? And I might say something like, the Chiefs will make the playoffs, because their offense is clicking and they're scoring lots of touchdowns, and I think it's very likely that they'll make it unless the defense stinks and then they don't win their games. But of course, the Bills and Steelers could still win their wild card spot too. Or I could say, but of course, the Chiefs have also had an easy schedule, so maybe not. So I might say, easy schedule though. Okay, because, I read somewhere the Chiefs have the easiest schedule for the remainder of the season, which that's why their playoff hopes are so high, is, because and that was terribly written. I need to, fix that. Okay. I'm trying to write easy schedule. So here, let me try that again. Okay, easy schedule. Okay. So, the easy schedule part is what we call the rebuttal. So, basically a rebuttal is the counter argument to your arguments that you're just kind of putting out there to show awareness of it. you're not reserving your argument. You're not saying that, you're not adding a condition to it, but you're countering it yourself. There are times when you may want to do that when you're just trying to be objective about things, and you're trying to just show that you're aware of what they're going to say, okay? And maybe you're willing to concede some aspect of it, because it's better to concede on your own terms than on somebody else's. Does that make sense? So the argument as a whole will be something like this. It's very likely that the Chiefs will make the playoffs this year because their offense is clicking. We know that their offense is clicking because they're scoring lots of touchdowns, and as we know, a good offense can win games. But of course, unless the defense stinks, I think the Chiefs will make the playoffs. But I also recognize that they have an easy schedule and that it may not be able to happen because the easy schedule doesn't prepare them for what's to come. Something like that. So that's the Toolman model of arguments based on my messy handwriting. And you can look this up on other sources as well, and you can get even more diagrams and charts of the Toolman model. But I really want you to be aware of this because this is an easy, systematic way to break down ideas and arguments. And then, if this was an argumentation class, we could go into every little way to attack an argument as well. And you can see already how you might do that with the rebuttal, with the claim, with the reservation. You can add reservations to a claim unless defense stinks or unless Andy Reid calls bad plays, whatever. I mean, you could qualify it more. I don't think it's very likely. I think it's a lot less likely that they're going to make it. I would only give it like a 25% chance. You can attack the backing. Their offense clicking because they're scoring touchdowns. Yeah, but they're, only field goals most of the time. Something like that. So lots of ways then you can attack the argument, and you can understand that whatever direction of attack you're going, it can do something different to everything else, okay? So that's the key to critical thinking. Be systematic, break down ideas, see how they work, and then take them apart if you need to. All right? So know this for the quiz and future critical thinking. Talk to you later.